Hey guys, tonight we step into a world where your breath fogs in the cold air and your hands tremble, not from the chill, but from fear. A door just slammed behind you. Footsteps echo down a dirt lane outside, slow and deliberate. A torch flares just past your shutters, and someone says your name, not in prayer, not in kindness, but in that careful hush people use when they're talking about something they shouldn't know. If this sleepy scroll through the past brought you peace, a like and a sub would mean a lot. Tell me in the comments, where in the world are you listening from tonight? What time is it there? And how are you doing? I hope you're somewhere safe and warm. Now close your eyes, slow your breathing, and come with me. You're not just imagining this, you're living it. Welcome to the last day you'll ever be considered normal. You've been asleep, curled beneath coarse wool, your back aching from yesterday's firewood run. The hearth is nothing but embers now. And then, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks. No rhythm, just the kind that says, we waited until it was dark for a reason. Your name again. Louder this time. Which? Someone mutters. And that's when your gut knots. Because you know this isn't about the neighbor's missing chicken. This is bigger. You stand, careful not to creak the floorboards. But the dog already stirred. He whines, low and useless, and scratches the door as if he wants to help, or hide. Outside, boots crunch frozen earth. You peek through the shutters. Torchlight dances off iron helms. The bishop's men? No, not yet. Just villagers. People you know. People who used to ask you for cures, for blessings, for that nettle tea when their joints flared up in winter. Ah, now they're here with ropes. You try to remember? Did you leave that jar of toadstools out? Did someone see you bury the charm under the ash tree? Last week, you'd caught a child watching from the edge of the forest. You were just collecting herbs, but he ran like he saw a ghost. Maybe he did. To a mind that's been fed fear since birth, every bent shadow is brimstone. You open the door. You shouldn't. But waiting makes it worse. And sure enough, it's 3 men and 1 woman. All faces you know. One holds a lantern. The others hold expressions like stone. We need to speak with you. It isn't a question. They step inside. Don't wait to be invited. That would be too civil. The woman, Marta, won't look you in the eye. She was the one you helped with the difficult birth last spring. The baby's alive. Shouldn't that count for something? But gratitude is flammable, and rumor burns fast. We've had some signs, says Jacob the baker, and your name came up. Came up like sour milk. You stay calm. Calm is all you have. You ask gently, what kind of signs? They shift. Someone mumbles about a rash, a cow's milk going sour, a dream. Always a dream, isn't it? Where someone's floating above the town well, whispering strange things. That's enough now. Tell us what you've done, says Marta, eyes finally lifting. Before the bishop's men come. You blink. That's the 2nd time they've mentioned them. That means someone's already sent for them. And once the bishop's men arrive, with their tests and irons and scripture, you're not getting out of this. The truth is simple. You haven't done anything, at least not in the way they think. Yes, you talk to birds. Yes, you know which plants can stop bleeding, and which ones make a man sleep long enough to miss a day's work. You've got a reputation for knowing things, and that, in this time, is dangerous, especially when things go wrong. Historians still argue whether mass witch hunts were more about religious fervor or social control, but they all agree on one thing: being different in the wrong year could kill you. You ask if you're being accused. Jacob frowns. Not yet. Not yet. So they search, quietly, as if they're entitled to. They open cupboards, lift floorboards, sniff dried herbs. Marta picks up your carved charm and drops it like it stung. It's for fertility, you say. But they've already made their decision? When they leave, you don't cry? That would waste strength. Instead, you go to the shelf. You take the small pouch with your best dried bundles. Wormwood, vervain, henbane. You don't use these unless you have to. But tonight, you just might. Down by the hearth, your dog whines again. He senses something coming. You do too. The village is changing. A storm of fear has been building. You saw it when Father Edric denounced the midwives, when the tanner's apprentice claimed his limp came from a hex, when the vicar began preaching about ungodly women and the devil's whispers in dark places. And now it's you. The irony? Most of the time, so-called witches were just women who knew how to survive without permission. They had skills outside the church's reach, medicine that came from roots, not relics. Wisdom passed from grandmother to granddaughter, not from pulpit to pew. That makes you dangerous. And tonight, you feel it in your bones. You're about to be hunted not for what you've done, but for what they've decided you've done. Your hands shake as you lock the door, as if a locked door will stop what's coming, as if superstition respects wood. You think of the charm under the ash tree. You wonder if you should dig it up just in case. But it's too late. People always dig deeper than dirt when they're looking for sin. Outside, the wind howls, and somewhere far off, a dog barks. Not yours. Another. Or something else entirely. Sleep won't come tonight, and dawn may not either. You're up before the light. Not that you've slept. Just paced the floor, staring into the dying hearth, listening for another knock. The villagers are gone for now, but their shadows linger, in your rafters, in your lungs. You don't bother with breakfast. Your hands are too unsteady to hold the spoon. You step outside, and the cold smacks you like a bucket of truth. You are not safe anymore. The crows follow you again. Always 3 of them. Black as ash, bold as rumors, they circle above your head like you owe them rent. You've never tamed them. Not exactly. But they come when you whistle. They land when you call. And that right there might be your death sentence. Because someone told someone else that crows are the devil's eyes. That witches speak to them and receive dark instructions in return. Doesn't matter if you've never once heard a voice from beneath the earth. Doesn't matter that the only thing you've ever asked a crow is where your berries went. In the right season, in the right town, or the wrong one rather, a woman with a crow is a witch. Period. You glance up at one now, perched like royalty on the old thatch eaves. Bad timing, you whisper. He just blinks. Down the path you pass Marta's house. Her shutters are closed, but you see a shape inside. Watching, maybe regretful. Maybe not. Historians still argue whether witchcraft accusations were truly believed or just useful. Was it hysteria or strategy? After all, it's easier to explain disease, famine, or heartbreak by pinning it to a person instead of the invisible whims of nature or God. And you're the most explainable thing around. You carry on, basket in hand, trying to look normal. You're headed for the hills where the feverfew grows, where the forest still feels like it's on your side. But even the trees seem nervous today, like they've heard what's coming. At the edge of the brush you stop, because there, half hidden by fog, is little Thomas, the miller's boy, about 8. Dirty knees, wild hair, a mouth too quick with secrets. He's crouched low, watching you. Are you gonna fly? He asks, wide-eyed. You blink. What? Papa says you fly at night, on a rake. A rake, bless him. They can't even get their myths straight. You smile gently, trying not to seem rattled. That sounds uncomfortable. He shrugs. Papa says you talk to birds and goats, and you made Marta's baby come out backwards. You crouch, basket against your knee. Do you think I'm a witch? He looks unsure. I don't know. Mama says if you were, you'd be prettier. Okay, that stings. But it's telling. Even a child is absorbing the idea that witches must be strange, wild-looking, outside the bounds of beauty and order. You can heal a horse's leg, help a woman through childbirth, stop someone's seizures with mugwort, and none of it matters if your cheekbones aren't symmetrical enough. Don't believe everything you hear. You tell him, but he's already bolting down the hill, imagination lit like tinder. You sigh and step into the woods. The herbs you gather don't care what they call you. They recognize your touch. Valerian root, feverfew foxglove, tools of healing or harm. Depends on dosage, depends on intent. But no one in the village knows that. To them, a leaf is a leaf until it kills or cures. Then it's your fault either way. You crouch by a stream, fingering a clump of red-stemmed herbs. Once, you saved a man's leg from rot with this. He offered you a chicken in thanks. That same man spat at your door last week, said your luck had turned. It's not luck, it's convenience. You were helpful when his wife was sick. Now she's fine, and you're a liability. And then it happens. A flutter of wings, not crows this time, a sparrow, and it drops something in front of you. A scrap of parchment, tiny, crumpled. You open it slowly. One line. They're watching your roof. You glance upward. Through the trees, your cottage roof is barely visible. A speck, but maybe, just maybe, someone planted something there. A feather, a token, a poppet, something that looks like witchcraft. That's the trick, isn't it? It doesn't need to be real, just real enough. Fringe records from the 17th century trials mention witch finders planting evidence. A sliver of bone, a dead toad with a pin in it. Once it's found, it's gospel. You couldn't convince a stone wall of your innocence after that. You turn sprinting through the brush, branches slapping your arms. No time to be quiet. You burst from the woods like the forest is on fire and stumble toward your cottage. But you're too late. A group is already there. 5 men, 1 woman, and sure enough, one of them is on the roof. He calls out, "Found something." You freeze. Every cell in your body goes silent. He climbs down and holds up a crude little doll. Straw, wrapped in twine, red stain at the neck. "I didn't," you start. "Then who did?" someone shouts. They circle you fast, smelling blood. Fear makes people fast. You recognize the doll. It was yours, but a child's toy. Your sister made it for you long ago. It was in a trunk. No red on it then. They added that. You open your mouth again, but no one wants a lecture in innocent backstory. They want a villain. The worst part? Some of them look excited, like they finally found meaning in their otherwise routine, muddy little lives. They get to stand against evil. They get to be righteous. You, however, get tied to a post, just to keep you from running. As dusk falls, they sit nearby, drinking weak beer and swapping stories of the signs they missed. One man claims he always thought your eyes looked too bright. Another says his dreams had been strange since you moved in. A third just nods along, chewing bread like a hero. The woman? Not Marta this time, but old Griselda, says you once looked at her husband the wrong way. That's all she offers. But it's enough to fuel the fire. You sit against the post, ropes tight around your wrists, staring at the flickering firelight. A crow calls in the distance, then another. It sounds like laughter. The ropes chafe your skin, but no one notices. Or maybe they do, and they like it. Across the clearing, someone throws another log on the fire, and it sparks like it's angry about the company it's keeping. They've left you tied for hours, not for safety, for theater, for everyone else in the village to see. Look, the flames seem to whisper. This is what happens when a woman knows too much. It started small. Doesn't it always? A cow went dry, a child caught fever. A man slipped in the mud and twisted his knee. And because they can't punish rain or germs or chance, they punish you. But this morning, the story changed. Today, the whispers said you used salt in the cornfield. A handful, scattered in patterns. To the trained eye, a protective charm. To the fearful, a hex. Something to make crops wither, or call bad spirits to ride the wind. No one saw you do it, of course, but someone heard someone say they heard you might have. And that's enough. Witch signs, they call it now. You remember placing the salt, months ago, for Marta's child, to protect the baby's future harvests. She thanked you, kissed your cheek, said her mother did the same thing, once. But gratitude is paper thin. Fear, meanwhile, is carved in stone. And now they've added a new accusation, blood on the spoon, which is half true. You do keep a small wooden spoon in your pouch. A ritual item, yes. Not for curses, but for measuring bloodroot in healing tinctures. But again, who cares? A stain is a stain, and they're not here for nuance. A man with too many teeth steps forward. His name's Elias, the pig farmer. He's sweating under his cloak, even in the cold. In one hand, he holds a bundle of rags. "We found this in her chest," he says loudly, unwrapping it. "It's your medicine bundle. Dried leaves, clippings, a strip of crow feather, and yes, one small pouch of bloodroot, deep red. She uses it to summon spirits," he adds, with the conviction of someone who once read half a Latin sentence and felt powerful for a week. You open your mouth, again, to explain, but he keeps talking louder. That's how this works. If the truth doesn't shut you down, volume will. The crowd murmurs. A few of them nod, and you can see it behind their eyes. The panic trying to morph into certainty. They want to believe this is evil, because then they get to feel safe for catching it. You ask softly, "If I was really a witch, why haven't I turned you all into toads by now?" One or two villagers chuckle, nervously, but the joke doesn't land. Not in this climate. They tie you tighter. One of the women, Greta, a brewer's widow, steps up with a story. She claims you whispered something when you passed her in the market. 2 days later, her milk soured. She forgot what you actually said, or if you said anything. But the connection is obvious, right? Another claims her candle went out in the middle of prayer. You're doing. Obviously, because candles have never gone out before in the history of the world. Historians still debate the extent to which these evidences were sincerely believed, or simply fabricated to justify existing envy, bitterness, or debts. Because guess what? Half these people owe you something. Chickens, herbs, secrets. Now they pay in blame. Even more absurd. Witch accusations were contagious. Once someone was suspected, others began to remember things. That time your cat stared too long at the bishop. That time you walked home humming after dark. That time you smiled at someone's sick child, and the child still died. It doesn't matter what really happened. You are the frame they've decided to hang their fear on. And here comes the real kicker. "Someone saw her in the woods," says Elias again. "At night, dancing." You roll your eyes. That was Beltane. You were all there. But they've conveniently forgotten, because it's different when you do it. Suddenly, a younger girl steps forward, barefoot, thin. She's holding something wrapped in cloth, and the crowd parts for her like she's walking holy ground. It's Elsbeth, the apothecary's niece. She's not exactly your student, but she's learned from watching you. You've given her extra seeds, taught her how to crush poppy properly. A smart girl. Too smart. She holds out the cloth, slowly unwraps it. Inside is a tiny poppet, a doll made of wax, the kind meant for healing. You remember giving it to her. She'd made it herself for her mother, who was ill with chills. "She made this," Elsbeth says, "to help Mama." The crowd stiffens. not because of what she says, but because she's saying anything at all. Elias narrows his eyes. Did she give it to you? No, the girl says. I asked for it. She said I had the hands for it. That last part might have doomed her. Witchcraft passes through touch, Griselda mutters. It stains the soul. Some of them start to murmur that the girl's tainted, that she'll grow into a worse witch than you ever were. The words build like storm clouds. And you? You finally lose your temper. She's a child, you shout. She saved her mother. She did more good in one season than any of you do in a year. That's the wrong thing to say, because now they feel insulted, and nothing fuels a righteous mob like hurt feelings. They drag Elsbeth back. She drops the poppet. No one picks it up. They say nothing else to you. They don't need to. The mood has shifted again, from spectacle to sentence. They untie you, briefly, just to shackle your wrists in iron. And then for the first time they say it plainly. You'll be tried at the next quarter session, Jacob says. Before the bishop, before the law, which sounds official. Fair even. But you know what those trials look like. You know the rules are stacked. The tests are impossible. They'll weigh you against the Bible. They'll search your body for devil's marks. They'll ask trick questions. And if you answer too quickly, you rehearsed. Too slowly, you're hiding something. If you weep, you're guilty. If you don't, you're guilty. And now you're marched back to the village, through mud and frost, past people who pretend not to see, past your own herbs now trampled, past the goat who used to nuzzle your hand. He watches you go, silent. At the chapel door, a bell rings. Not for prayer, for purging. You're pushed into the stone cell beneath the altar. Cold, damp, dark. And you think to yourself, maybe next time, don't talk to crows. You wake to the sound of dripping. Not water, not exactly. It's slower, thicker. Somewhere above you, rain slips through the chapel's broken tiles and pools on the stone ceiling. From there, it travels down the walls and gathers at your feet. Your cell smells of mildew, old candle wax, and something sharp. Iron, maybe, or blood. You try not to think about which. There's no window, no straw, no blanket. Just a door with a single barred slit and scratch marks carved into the base. Some are old, some are fresh. You count them. You wish you hadn't. Hours pass, maybe days. The food they bring you is wet bread and silence. No faces, just a tray, slid through with a clang. One of them, you think it's young Peter, the scribe's son, whispers, "I'm sorry" once. That might be worse than nothing. You dream strange things. A crow with a silver beak, a burning tree, your mother's voice calling you from a well. You wake with your tongue dry and your hands shaking. And then one day, or night or something between, the door opens. Two figures in heavy cloaks step in. They don't smile. They don't speak right away. One holds a lantern. The other holds a satchel. When the first one finally speaks, his voice is gravel in honey. "We are the bishop's men." There it is. The phrase everyone's been muttering for days. Like a curse or a cure, depending on whom you ask. You sit upright, trying not to show fear, but your body betrays you. The shiver that travels your arms isn't subtle. They don't care. We'll begin with questions. Of course you will. They sit. Not to make you comfortable, just to tower more effectively. The man with the lantern pulls out a sheet of parchment, begins to read. Accusations, witness statements, a list of alleged items found in your cottage. The doll, the feather, the spoon, a pinch of dried nightshade in a twist of cloth. You start to explain, to correct the record, but he holds up a hand. We're not here for stories. Charming. The second man, silent until now, opens the satchel. Inside are tools. No, not torture devices. Not yet. Just ink, quills, a flask of oil, and a strip of something soft. Lambskin? He lays it out carefully like he's setting a table. Then he removes something that makes your stomach twist. A wooden board, carved symbols, hollow divots. It smells of old incense and fear. We're looking for the mark, he says. You know what he means. Every suspected witch must be examined for it. The devil's mark. Could be anywhere. A mole, a scar, a freckle shaped slightly wrong. They say it doesn't bleed when pricked. They say it doesn't feel pain. You want to laugh. You almost do. You think the devil signs leases? No reaction. These two have heard better jokes, or worse truths. They approach. You're told to disrobe, only partially, but enough to make you cold in more ways than one. They begin to search. The skin behind your ear, the back of your thigh, the hollow of your ribs. They find a birthmark. Of course they do. Everyone has one. Yours is small, pale, like a smear of ash. He presses it with a pin. You don't flinch, not because you're brave, but because you're numb. That's the one, he says. You look him in the eye. I burned myself on the kettle when I was 12. He nods, like that proves your guilt. Historians still argue whether examiners actually believed in devil's marks or simply used them as legal shortcuts. Some prickers were frauds paid by the body. Others believed they were doing holy work. A few were both. They dress you again, give you water. Not kindness, just maintenance. You're going to need your voice. They say your trial is tomorrow. You ask what happens if you're found innocent. The man with the satchel shrugs. That hasn't come up much. That night, you don't sleep. The crows don't come. The dreams stay away. All you have is your breath counting itself. In, outside, in, outside. By morning, you're ready. Or as ready as anyone can be for something designed to break you. They bring you to the chapel's hall. It's colder than the cell. Inside, benches are packed. Familiar faces, distant ones. People who never spoke to you, but now feel entitled to witness your ruin. The bishop sits in the center. A man in crimson and gold with eyes like wet slate. His expression is not cruel, just tired. Like someone forced to sit through a particularly long sermon every day of his life. He doesn't look at you. Not yet. Bring her forward, someone calls. You step onto the stone floor. The air smells like smoke and wet wool. Candles flicker against the high walls. And you realize suddenly that this entire room is a stage. You're the villain. They're the audience. And the verdict was decided before the curtain rose. They read the charges. Witchcraft, consorting with demons, cursing livestock, influencing weather, bewitching a child, using unsanctioned herbs, dancing under the moon, and most recently added, placing blood upon the village spoon. You sigh audibly at that one. The bishop finally looks up. You find this amusing? No, you say. I find it exhausting. A ripple moves through the crowd. The bishop holds up a hand. Silence returns. You will answer the charges, he says. So you do. Calmly. Clearly. As if clarity counts. You explain the herbs, the healing, the doll, the salt, the feather, the crow. Each word is met with narrowed eyes. Then they bring in the witnesses. Marta, Elias, Greta, all parroting versions of half-truths and full fantasies. The girl with the milk, the candle that blew out, the man who had a dream of you turning into smoke. And then, to your horror, Elsbeth. She looks terrified. They've cleaned her up, put her in a clean dress, told her what to say. But she hesitates, and that's everything. She helped my mother, she says. She never asked for anything but kindness. She's not... Griselda steps forward, grabs the girl's hand. She's scared. The witch has bewitched her. There it is. Protection turned to poison. Kindness turned to corruption. Your voice breaks, just a little. You're twisting her words. But the bishop is done listening. We have testimony. We have the mark. We have the doll, the herbs, the witnesses. You've had your chance. He lifts a hand. Your sentence is passed. Not yet death, not yet, but close. 3 days in the stocks, then further judgment will be rendered. Stocks, public shame, spit, stones. You'll stand in the square like a warning carved in flesh. And after that, probably fire, maybe rope, almost certainly silence. They lead you out, and the village watches. But as you're dragged past the chapel gate, you see something unexpected. A crow, perched high, watching. A second joins, then a third. And they begin to caw. Loud, repeating. You don't smile, but deep inside, something cold thaws for a second. You're not alone yet. The stocks are older than anyone remembers. Built of ash wood and iron, they creak like they resent being used again. Once reserved for drunks and thieves, now they hold you, not for what you did, but for what they think you are. They drag you to the village square before sunrise, as if sin is more manageable in the dark. The men who tighten the bolts don't speak, just work in rhythm. Wood, iron, click. You're locked in place, bent slightly forward, arms and head exposed, every ache made public. And then you wait. The first to arrive is a boy with freckles and cold breath. He spits, misses, but the point is made. The second is a woman you once cured of winter fever. She stares, says nothing, walks away. But she doesn't help you, and in this town, silence counts as fuel. Soon others gather, not to gawk, to judge, to feel righteous, to feel safe in their sameness. They whisper about your crows again, that they were seen circling the bishop's steeple. That one landed on his lectern mid-sermon. A sign, they say. You think it's more likely the bird just liked the heat from the candles. But signs are what people crave, and where they lack them, they'll invent them. 3 hours pass. Your neck aches. Your wrists go numb. Someone throws a crust of stale bread at your feet. For a moment, you think it's charity. Then they laugh. A child tugs your hair. His mother chuckles. Witch got a haircut, she says, like that's clever. Historians argue whether public shaming was meant to reform the accused, or simply reassure the community that fear had a face and a fix. Either way, it worked. People leave the square with straighter backs and cleaner consciences. And still you stand. Midday. The sun refuses to warm you. Your skin burns anyway from wind and humiliation. You close your eyes and picture the forest, the way light filters through the leaves, the soft crackle of squirrel feet, the place where you buried your first charm, a coin wrapped in mint and string meant to keep nightmares away. Did it work? You can't remember. Someone shouts, "Make her dance," and the crowd roars, but no one unties you. They just jeer. Someone plays a pipe, badly. It's off key and out of tune. Still, a girl twirls nearby like she's mocking you. You don't move, don't speak, because they want a reaction, and giving it would feed them. You've already been accused of curses. Now, if you scowl too hard, someone's crops will surely wither. If you blink too long, they'll say you summoned rain. So you stay still. That night, they leave you there. No food, no water, just the stars, cold and blinking, and vastly indifferent. You doze in fragments, jerk awake when your legs give out. Somewhere nearby, a fox screams, that high, unearthly sound. You wonder if someone will blame that on you too. By dawn, your lips are cracked. Your tongue sticks to your teeth. You hear your name muttered by strangers. You hear your name laughed. And then, like smoke through a keyhole, comes something unexpected. A flower, laid at your feet, quiet, delicate, bell-shaped, a sprig of foxglove, poisonous in the wrong dose, but beautiful and useful. You glance around. No one claims it, but someone knows. You want to smile, but your face forgot how. On the third day, they unbolt you. You collapse to your knees, and no one helps you stand. You crawl. You breathe dirt. You thank the earth for existing. And as they drag you back to the chapel cell, someone whispers, "Burn her!" Another says, "The bishop is waiting." You know what that means. They're done pretending this is about evidence. That night in the cell, you hear them preparing. A hammer, nails, lumber. You remember the tales. Women who were willing and burned anyway. Women who confessed under pain, then begged for mercy and received rope instead of fire. Lesser punishment, they said. What mercy? You laugh, once, and it echoes too loud. Later, a visitor comes, hooded, silent. They pass a cloth through the bars. Inside is food, soft bread, real cheese, and a tiny vial of something amber-colored. You sniff it. Valerian. Maybe honey? Maybe aconite? Is this a kindness? A mercy vial? Take it before they take you? Or is it from someone who believes in you? Someone who thinks you'll escape? You tuck it under your sleeve, just in case. Sleep comes, not gentle, but heavy, like a stone pulled into water. You dream of crows, of wings slicing fog, of whispers in a language you almost understand, and of fire, always fire. You wake to footsteps. Tomorrow, they say, the sentence will be carried out. They don't say what sentence, but they don't have to. You already smell the wood. You're up before dawn again, though up isn't the right word. You never really lay down. You just drifted in and out of a half-sleep, hands folded under your chin, your legs aching from the days in the stocks. The cell smells of damp cloth, old breath, and the kind of stillness that comes before people die. Today's the day. You know it not because anyone told you directly, but because they didn't. No more whispers, no more warnings. The silence is too complete. That's how people behave when they've made peace with your disappearance. Footsteps approach, not rushed, measured, intentional. It's the bishop's men again, the same two as before. They open the door. One holds out a plain shift, gray, rough, and clean. Clean, as if to make a statement. You undress slowly, deliberately. There's no shame left in you. They burned that off 3 days ago in the square. You dress in silence, but they speak when the shift covers your knees. You will be led to the field. Of course, not the churchyard, not the square. The field beyond the old chapel wall. The one where the trees lean sideways and the ground sags like it's remembering something. They call it Witch's Hollow now. Naturally. As they walk you through the back gate, the village is already gathered. Not all, but enough. Enough to prove to each other that justice is being done. Children hang from shoulders. Old men lean on staffs. Women clutch their shawls and make the sign of the cross, like it's armor. You scan the crowd looking for one face, just one, that might still believe in you. You find none, except the crows. They're waiting in the trees, a dozen at least, silent, watching. Wings hunched against the cold, like little black judges, uninterested in fire or fear. You walk barefoot. The grass is sharp with frost. Each step stings. Someone tosses a clod of dirt. It misses. The bishop's men say nothing. And then you see it. The stake. It's taller than you thought, and newer. made for this, bound with iron, already blackened at the base, like it's seen things before. They lead you to it, tie your wrists behind the post. A priest approaches, not the bishop. He stays distant, on a carved wooden bench, like a man waiting for a harvest. The priest opens his book, recites something in Latin. You catch fragments: impuritus, demonium, purgatio. None of it feels holy. A man steps forward with a torch, but not yet. First, they ask the final question: will you confess? Historians still debate what that meant. A real confession, or a performance to soothe the crowd? In many cases, a confession meant mercy, rope instead of fire. Sometimes it meant nothing. They killed you anyway. It just helped them sleep. You pause, consider the words. But confessing means agreeing with their story. You lift your chin. No. The crowd murmurs. The priest looks disappointed. The bishop? Unmoved. Then may God have mercy on your soul, the priest says, as if he didn't spend all week sharpening the blade of this moment. The man with the torch steps forward. He lights the kindling beneath you. The fire takes quickly. They made sure of that. But something happens. Not fear. Not yet. The flames are real. They crackle, snap, begin to climb. But before the heat reaches you, something else rises first. A sound. Not a scream, not a cheer. A caw. Loud, sharp, then another. The crows rise from the trees like a storm in reverse. Dozens. No, more. Black feathers flood the sky, circling above you, flapping wildly. The crowd stirs. Some gasp. One child screams. And then one dives, straight into the fire. Not to save you, just to prove something. It flares and dies in the smoke, but the others follow, circling, diving, harassing the priest, tearing at the banners, clawing at the bishop's sleeve. The torchman drops his brand, tries to swat them. More come. The crowd flees. The bishop stands, stunned. Someone shouts about omens. Another says, sign of the devil. Another says, angel's curse. You say nothing. Because the fire is climbing. And it's real. And it's close now. But something else happens. A flash, a shift, your sleeve, the one you tucked the vial into. It bursts under heat. The tiny bottle shatters against your wrist. And you feel it. The liquid, the valerian, the aconite, cooling your skin. Not enough to stop the burn, but enough to cloud your senses. The smoke thickens. The world fades. The last thing you see is the bishop, running. Not walking, running. You don't die. At least, not completely. When you wake, it's night again. The air smells of ash, wet bark, and earth. Damp earth, like the forest after a storm. Your head throbs. Your skin burns, but not like fire. More like bruised heat, tender and pulsing. You're not at the stake. You're not in the cell. You're lying in moss. A hand touches your face. Gentle, cool, rough with soil. You flinch, but the touch doesn't retreat. It steadies, anchors. You open your eyes. A woman, or a shadow shaped like one, cloaked in layers of fabric that blend into the night. Her face is half hidden. Her voice, when it comes, is older than the forest. You took long enough. You try to sit up. Fail. She places a finger on your chest. Rest. You've been unconscious for a day and a half. We thought you'd broken completely. You rasp. From the trees, more figures. Silent. Unnamed. Women with cloaks. Men with herbs. A child with a hair on her shoulder. No one speaks, but you feel them. Like pressure in the air. We've been watching, she says. Of course they have. The outcasts. The quiet ones. the watchers on the edge of the village, the ones who asked no questions but always knew too much, the ones the bishop fears more than the devil. Because they never burned. They just vanished. And now they're here. You were marked, the woman says, but not by the bishop or the church. You were marked by the moment you stood still in front of them, by what you didn't say. That's the difference between a witch and a victim. You cough, your throat is raw. She holds a cup to your lips, something bitter, familiar. Yarrow and licorice root. Maybe opium, maybe not, but it helps. Did I? You pause, wincing. Did I burn? She shrugs. A little, not all the way. The fire was more show than substance. They panicked. The crows helped. You laugh, or try, it hurts. They thought you were dead. That was enough. They saw black wings and left the rest to God. So that's it. You're a ghost now. Not legally, not officially. But in the minds of the village, you died screaming beneath feathers and smoke. And sometimes that's safer. Where am I, you ask? The hollow, she says. The real one, beneath the fake one they built for their fires. That's when you notice the carvings in the trees. Symbols. Words in a language you don't know, but understand anyway. Protective, ancient, older than the book, older than the fears that killed you. She reaches into her cloak, pulls out something wrapped in leather, unfolds it. Your journal. The one they called a book of shadows. The one they mocked and nearly used to condemn you. It's intact, untouched by fire. You'll need this, she says. You look at her confused. Why? She doesn't smile, but something softens in her face. Because they're not done. She means the village, the bishop, the whole rotten wheel of fire and fear and rope and power. They think they've cleansed something, she says. But fear doesn't die with the accused. It only goes quiet until the next child coughs, the next cow dies, the next dream goes dark. You want to ask what happens now, but you already know. You stay dead. You become a whisper, a shadow behind the trees, a figure seen just beyond the smoke, because that's the only way to live now, by becoming what they fear. The others gather around. They nod. They accept. Not because they know you, but because they recognize you. They've all stood at the edge of fire. They've all been called something worse than their names. Some fled before the torch was lit. Some were pulled from the ashes, barely breathing. Some simply vanished. You join them. Not as a follower. Not as a servant. But as something new. The woman hands you a cloak, black, lined with old leaves. The hood fits perfectly. There are rules, she says. You nod. You'll learn them. There is power, she says. You smile. Not because you crave it, but because it was always there. You were just never allowed to use it. And there will be pain. That part you already know. They take you deeper into the woods, past ruins overgrown with moss, past stones shaped like teeth, into a hollow beneath a hill where the air hums with something unseen. They teach you. Slowly, not with lessons, but with rituals, songs, movements. You begin to understand things that once scared you. The owl's flight, the fox's cry, the moment between a scream and silence. You learn to listen, to blend, to disappear. One night, the girl with the hair, her name is Della, takes your hand and shows you a bowl of water under the moon. You see your reflection. Not broken, not bruised. Changed. A witch, yes, but not the kind they warned the village about. Not the kind that consorts with devils. The kind that survives. The kind that heals. The kind that remembers. Because that's what the fire couldn't burn. Your memory. And somewhere in that village that thinks you're ash and smoke, a child coughs. A cow limps. and someone says your name by candlelight, as if you might still be listening. You are. They forget quickly, the living. By the time the snow melts and the church bells ring again, your name is a whisper, not a headline. The children who once threw stones at your feet now draw circles in the dirt and dare each other to stand where you burned. Some say they still see smoke rising from the stake. Others claim to hear your voice in the wind. All of them agree on one thing. You were a witch, and witches don't die like the rest of us. They're not wrong. Because even though you walk softer now, beneath branches, between roots, you're not gone. You're watching. Sometimes from the woods, sometimes from the sky, and sometimes from inside the village itself. You wear a different cloak now. You walk differently. Speak only when needed. Sometimes it's easier when they don't recognize your face, or when they assume you're part of the traveling peddlers, a cousin of a cousin, a figment. They don't know what to do with someone they thought they killed. Your first visit back is brief. You stay behind the hedgerow near the baker's lane, just long enough to see that Elias's pigs have gone lame, that Marta limps now, that Greta's beer sours in the barrel, no matter how clean her casks. Coincidence? Let's say yes. Because vengeance is too small for what you've become. That's not to say you don't feel it, the old anger, deep in the bone. But you've learned something powerful. Vengeance is loud. Power is quiet. Instead of curses, you leave charms. Under doors, in thatched roofs, in the hollow of a tree stump where a child plays. Not to hurt, to balance. You don't take from the village, you tilt it. And the land responds. The forest, once silent to you, now murmurs. Moss grows where you kneel. Vines shift to reveal paths. Even the crows, especially the crows, return. They fly lower now. Follow you farther. They are your messengers, your company, your spies. They see what you cannot. They carry what you can't. One morning, Della, the girl with the hair, brings you news. A new priest has come. You raise an eyebrow. They say he's different. Young, kind, asks questions. You've heard that before. You follow the edge of the field and watch him. He wears simpler robes, speaks softer, smiles more. He even kneels when he talks to children. But when he sees a crow land on the chapel's cross, his eyes narrow. So no, not different, just better at pretending. Still, the village is quieter now. The fires don't burn so easily. People hesitate before pointing fingers, not because they've become better, but because they're uncertain. They remember the crows. They remember what came after. Historians still debate whether fear of witches declined because of education, changing theology, or public exhaustion with brutality. But on the ground, where lives were lived and lost, it often came down to one thing. Too many strange things happened after the stake. Too many survivors refused to stay silent. And you're one of them now. The hollow, your new home, has grown. Others arrive, quiet ones, wandering ones, midwives chased from their towns, girls who read stars, boys who hear animals in dreams, men who cry without shame, women who build traps not for prey, but for lies. It becomes a sanctuary, not of darkness, not of evil, but of difference. One day, a boy from the village stumbles into the hollow. He's bleeding from the scalp, shaking. He says his brother called him cursed, that he sees things in the water, faces, stories, sometimes names. You take his hand. You feel the tremble in his bones. Can you control it, you ask? He shakes his head. Do you want to? Another shake. Then let's teach you how to live with it. Because that's the lesson, isn't it? Not to erase the strange, but to shape it. Not to fear the difference, but to name it. Not to burn the girl who speaks to crows, but to learn why the crows keep listening. Back in the village, they still speak your name, not with malice anymore, not entirely. Some whisper it to keep children from misbehaving. Others carve it into tree trunks. One girl leaves a bouquet at the blackened post each spring. Sometimes they add flour to the doorframe for protection. Sometimes they do it just in case, because no one wants to be the next to dream of fire. And if you happen to leave a pouch of dried feverfew by the well after the midwife falls ill, well, no one sees it. But the next day, she wakes. They call it a miracle. You call it insurance. The truth is, you never wanted this role. Not the label, not the fear, not the fire. You wanted to help, to heal, but they made you something else. Not a monster, not a martyr, a memory. And memories, once planted deep, don't fade. They grow. So you walk the edge of the village now, not to haunt, but to hold. You carry its history in your bones, its cruelty in your scars, its hope in your shadow. You still wear the cloak. You still carry the book. And when a child asks who you are, you tell them gently, I'm the reason you don't need to be afraid anymore. Because someone once was, and lived to tell it. It's summer now. The woods are green again, loud with insect song, and the rustle of branches gossiping in the breeze. You walk barefoot through the hollow, no longer flinching at twigs or stones. The earth knows you now, molds itself to your feet. You pause at a tree whose roots wrap like fingers around a half-buried stone. There, carved into the bark, faint but familiar, is the spiral. The first charm your mother taught you. For safety, for clarity. You trace it with one finger. Today is not like the others. You've been called. Not by a villager, not by Della, not by any of the hollow's quiet voices, by the land itself. The signs started subtly. Crows flying too low, mushrooms growing in perfect circles by the water's edge, your shadow stretching wrong at sunrise. And then the dream. A girl, pale as milk, hair like fire, floating in the river, eyes open, mouth full of petals. You wake breathless, and when you open your door, a rabbit sits on the path, still, watching. It's time. You gather your pouch. Herbs, chalk, a knife, though not for violence, for binding, cutting thread, cutting lies. You follow the river upstream, not the one villagers use, but the old path, where the water splits and disappears beneath a cliff. The moss here is thick, almost soft enough to sleep in, but not today. Because there she is, just as in the dream, floating, alive but barely. You step into the water. It's cold, sharp, startling. You reach her, pull her in. Her breath is shallow but steady. Her dress is torn, her wrist scraped. She's no older than 16. You carry her to the shore. She wakes with a sound like cracking glass. Don't tell them, she says. Not who, just them. You recognize the fear, the tremble in the jaw, the shame shoved too deep. You've seen it before, in yourself, in Della, in the girl who dreamed fire into her hands but never told her mother. They said I was touched, the girl says. Wrong. Full of ghosts? That I brought the sickness. Of course they did. She closes her eyes. So I walked until I didn't want to walk anymore. You dry her with your cloak. Give her the herb tea, willow bark and honey. Not just for pain, for remembrance, for grounding. When she sleeps again, you watch the river. And for the first time, you let yourself feel it. Rage. Not the quick, sharp rage of a wounded ego, but the deep, ancient kind. The kind buried under centuries of rope and firewood. The kind passed down by every woman silenced, every girl shamed, every voice drowned to keep the village clean. Historians still debate the true purpose of witch hunts. whether they were about power, control, religion, or hysteria. But standing here, watching a half-drowned girl twitch in her sleep, you know the answer isn't academic. Witch hunts were about silence. Silencing the wild, the curious, the powerful, the inconvenient. And so you decide. You won't just protect. You'll speak. You return to the hollow with the girl in your arms. The others gather. Della, the boy who sees names in water, the woman who hasn't spoken aloud in 6 years. They see the girl, and no one asks questions. Only what she needs. She stays. And you begin teaching her, not just the herbs, but the history, the lies she's been fed, the words that were taken from her. She listens like a storm gathers, slowly, but with force. Days pass, then weeks. And then, one dusk, you hear the bell. From the village. Low. Heavy. A sound like regret falling down a well. It rings again. You know what it means. Another accusation. They're hunting again. You find the source easily. A widow, strange, quiet, tended her own garden, healed her cat with nettle and clay. Then her neighbor's baby died. No fever, no injury, just gone. And the whispers started, same as they always do. You go to her, not in secret, not veiled, in daylight. You knock. She opens the door and flinches when she sees you. They say you're dead? You finish. She nods. You smile softly. That's the only reason they stopped fearing me. You step inside. It's a small home, sparse, clean. A cat watches from the rafters. She tells you everything. The child's mother blames her. The midwife said her hands were too cold, that she smelled of damp leaves, that her cooking tasted like the grave. It's absurd, petty, predictable, but it's dangerous. Because it's growing again. You look at her table. There's feverfew drying. Birch bark stacked neatly. Her hands are stained with salve. She's one of you, and she doesn't even know it. You take her hand. Come with me. She hesitates. They'll kill you, you say, and call it grace. She follows. The hollow welcomes her. The others make room. And that night, under the crescent moon, you light a fire. Not for burning, for learning. You speak. You tell the story. Of how you didn't die. Of how they wanted you to. Of how silence feeds them. And how speaking is the only way to starve the fire. The girl listens. The widow cries. Della sings. And in the trees the crows call once. Sharp, clear, final. Let them ring their bells. You've heard worse. And you're still here. Rain comes early that morning. Not a drizzle. A true summer downpour. The kind that turns dirt roads into rivers and washes away every lie not nailed down. You wake to the scent of wet pine and ozone. The hollow stirs with it. Cloaks flap from branches. Herbs sway on drying lines. And somewhere in the distance, thunder whispers like a warning. You sit by the fire pit, a bowl of warm barley in your lap, and listen to the storm. Across from you, the widow, her name is Hilda now, stokes the coals. She still flinches at loud sounds, still startles at shadows, but her hands have steadied. Her eyes, once darting like a trapped rabbit's, now hold a quiet kind of rage, useful rage. Della joins you, dripping from her run through the bramble trail. She pulls a scrap of cloth from under her cloak and lays it on your lap. Rain-speckled, stained. A ribbon? Bright red. Too fine for village wear. You recognize it immediately. It belonged to the bishop. They're preparing again, Della says. Another trial, but this one's different. They've started digging a pit. You blink slowly. A pit? Not a stake this time. Not the old show. Something new. Something deeper. You hold the ribbon in your hand. Let the rain soak it. And you wonder, not for the first time, how many times they need to learn the same lesson before it sticks. They say a child has visions, Della adds. Says she sees women flying in her dreams. That one of them wears black. You smile, not kindly. What's the child's name? Annabelle, Marta's niece. Of course. You remember Annabelle. Freckled cheeks, a habit of staring too long, the kind of child who's never just playing, always testing. You remember her standing near your garden once, whispering to your dog. You liked her. And now she's dreaming the truth, and that makes her dangerous. Has anyone touched her, you ask? Della shakes her head. Not yet, but the bishops sent for a traveling examiner. Ah, them. Professional witch hunters, sometimes clergy, sometimes not. Always confident, always eager, they come with needles, books, and holy water thick as vinegar. They ask questions in circles and press until the answers match the story they want to hear. We have to go, you say. Hilda stirs. Go where? To the village. She gapes. You can't. But you raise a hand, not to silence, to ground her. We're not going to hide forever. We've done that. We've survived. But now they're twisting the sky again, and they're dragging another child into it. You look at Della. We go in at dusk. We don't wear shadows. We wear truth. That evening, the Hollow prepares. Not with weapons, not with fire. With presence. They gather herbs, charcoal, symbols drawn in wax and stitched into sleeves. You smear ash across your face, not to disguise, but to declare. You tie your mother's charm to your wrist. Della braids heather into her hair. Hilda sharpens a bone needle, not for stabbing, but for tracing signs on the wind. And together you walk. Through the forest, past the forked trees, toward the village where they once burned you and called it justice. No one stops you at the gates. The guards are drunk, or asleep, or simply unwilling to see what's walking toward them. You arrive at the square just before the bells ring. They've already gathered, villagers in wool and doubt, the bishop on his bench, his red ribbon conspicuously missing. Beside him, a tall man in foreign robes, the examiner, smug, pale, dangerous, the kind who thinks God's work involves measuring bruises and poking at moles. And beside them, Annabelle. She stands alone, barefoot, in a circle of salt. Her eyes are wide, not scared, angry. She sees you and smiles, just slightly. You step forward. The crowd parts, unsure if this is theater or miracle. You don't rush. You don't bow. You arrive. The bishop rises. The examiner squints. She was burned, someone hisses. She's a ghost, whispers another. You reach the salt circle. Annabelle steps out of it. You kneel. Did they hurt you? She shakes her head. Did they believe you? She shakes her head again. Do you want to leave? She nods. You take her hand, stand, turn to the bishop. You called for a witch, you say. Here I am. He pales. She died, he stammers. You smile. Apparently not well enough. The examiner raises a hand. This is deception. She's an imposter. No, you reply. She's the reason you're still having witch trials, because you never listened to the right people. And then you do something unthinkable. You speak the truth. You tell them about the fire, the hollow, the children who come broken and leave whole. You tell them about Hilda standing behind you now, eyes glowing like coals. You tell them about why people become afraid and who teaches them to be. You don't ask for belief. You don't ask for forgiveness. You name the fear. And when the crows come, as they always do, they don't scream. They circle, quiet, watching. The examiner backs away. The bishop sits down. and someone in the crowd begins to clap. One person, then another. It spreads, not like wildfire, but like spring. Not because they suddenly understand, but because they're tired. Tired of ashes, of shame, of being told what monsters look like, and who to fear. You walk out with Annabelle. No one stops you. The hollow is fuller that night. The fire is brighter. And for the first time in a long time, you feel something new. Momentum. The hollow hums with a new kind of silence. The kind that comes after a truth has been said too loud to forget. They talk about it for days. Not the villagers, your people. Della calls it a miracle. Hilda says it was suicide, disguised as bravery. The boy with the visions just grins and says, "It's starting." You sit by the fire and say nothing. Because he's right. It is starting. The bishop hasn't sent more men. Not yet. No firewood caravans, no rope shipments, no new sermons about sin and shadows. That doesn't mean he's given up. It means he's waiting. For something bigger, something final. And you know how this works. The next blow won't be rumor, it'll be doctrine. So you prepare. You don't train with weapons. You train with words, with herbs, with memory. You gather the others, not to plan war, but to preserve truth. The hollow becomes a classroom. You teach Della how to read the stars. You teach Hilda the old lullabies, the ones that aren't for sleep but for remembering. You even teach Annabelle. She learns fast, already drawing circles in the dirt, murmuring charms to bees. One night, she asks you if she's a witch. You smile. Number you're you, but that's what they'll call it. She nods. Then I want to be the best kind. The best kind. That's the dream, isn't it? You're teaching the next you, but better, wiser, unburned. Word spreads. They call you the smoke walker, the fire that lived, the one who came back. Most don't say your name, not out of fear, but reverence. You're becoming something else now. Not a woman, a figure, a story. And that's fine. Stories survive longer than skin. But you stay grounded. You still gather herbs, still walk barefoot when the earth feels right, still whisper to the crows. And then one evening, a knock at the hollow's southern edge. Not a traveler. A monk, thin, quiet, robes faded by sun and silence. He carries no cross, no scrolls, just a single bag and a piece of parchment. "I've come to talk," he says. You don't invite him in, but you don't stop him either. You meet beneath the stone arch where the ferns grow longest. He kneels. "Years ago," he says, "I heard your story." You raise an eyebrow. "I didn't believe it," he continues. "I thought they were just afraid that you were gone. But then, things started happening." "What things?" He looks you in the eye. Midwives disappearing, children turning up mute, villagers whispering about voices in the trees. And then, he pulls out the parchment, unfolds it. A list of names. Dozens. Midwives, healers, widows, girls who bled too early, boys who didn't marry. Anyone who walked with too much silence or too much certainty. All marked for removal, he says. You scan the names. Some you know, some you don't. They think if they do it quietly, no one will notice, that the smoke won't rise this time. You fold the list. "And you're here to warn us?" He shakes his head. "I'm here to join you." Now that takes you by surprise. "A monk?" He shrugs. "I read. I listen. I don't belong. I was always told faith and magic were enemies, but all I ever saw were people trying to explain the sky in different languages." You study him, long and slow. He doesn't flinch. You nod. Once. "Welcome." He blends quickly, not with spells, with stories. He becomes the Hollow's scribe, keeps records, teaches the younger ones how to map the constellations, translates old charms into symbols the children carve into stones. And one night, he finds something, an old text, half-rotted, buried beneath a hollow tree. A chant, a name, a ritual. You sit around the fire that night and read it aloud. It's not dark, it's not dangerous. It's a binding, a protection, a way to mark territory, not with signs, but with remembrance. And so you plan, not to attack, to protect. You draw circles around the hollow, bury feathers, not twine into the trees. You mark the paths not with traps, but with truths. And anyone who steps inside now, anyone with bad intent, will feel it. Not pain, not fear. Memory. Of every scream they ignored, every girl they silenced, every name they forgot. You call it the boundary. And when it's done, the forest changes. It hums, not loudly, but constantly, like breath beneath leaves, like a heart that never forgets. Weeks pass, then a month, and then the bishop sends someone. Not soldiers, scouts. 1, then 2, then 5. They don't come in armor. They come in cloaks, quiet, smiling, friendly. You let them enter. You watch from the trees. You let them walk far enough to forget the path back. Then the hollow moves. Not violently, just suddenly. Fog rolls in, the moss shifts, the birds stop singing. The scouts hear footsteps that aren't there. They hear names whispered from the trees. They run. Only one makes it back. The others wander. Not lost, just changed. And the one who returns? He tells the bishop everything. That the hollow is protected. That the smoke walker lives. That the crows speak. And that magic, real, strange, quiet magic, still walks the woods. You'd think the bishop would declare war, but he doesn't. Because now he's afraid. Because stories move faster than armies. And you? You're not a story anymore. You're the reason the fire stays out. The bishop does not sleep well anymore. In the dark hours, between the second and third bell, he hears caws. Not near, not far, just present. As if the rafters remember. As if guilt has feathers now. He writes letters, many. Urgent, desperate. To nobles, to abbots, to bishops even higher than himself. But responses are slow and vague and curiously light on sympathy. Some say contain the matter locally. Others suggest he re-examine the approach to spiritual unrest. One writes, your fires have attracted more than light. He stops writing after that. Instead, he starts preaching harder. The sermons grow louder, hotter. The word cleansing returns. He says the devil walks among the trees. He says the heretics twist mercy into poison. He says this from a golden lectern in a church built with tithes, while outside, the villagers look over their shoulders when the wind shifts. Because they've heard the hollow sings now, and no one wants to be the next to hear their name in its verses. Back in the hollow, it's nearly harvest season. The air smells of smoke, not fire but cooking. Roasted apples, birch syrup, clay-roasted turnips. Della sings while she stirs. Hilda brews a salve strong enough to numb a shattered rib. And Annabelle has started teaching others. Not spells, not yet. But questions. Why do they fear us? Why do they think healing must come with pain? Why are we supposed to stay small? And the others listen, because it's not magic that draws people in anymore. It's meaning. That's what the bishop never understood. The hollow didn't grow because of curses. It grew because people were hungry for a world that didn't hate what made them strange. And when enough strange people gather, they become a new normal. But even within peace, there are ripples. One arrives in the form of a rider, hooded, horse breathing hard. The hollow watches from the trees as he dismounts. He carries no blade, no cross, just a satchel with scrolls and a weathered look of exhaustion. He speaks only once. My daughter dreams of fire, and I don't want to lose her to men who mistake fear for faith. You take him in. He tells you of his town, miles away. A girl, barely 10, who sleepwalks and speaks in forgotten languages, who heals birds, who sees things before they happen. The neighbors call her star-cursed. The priest calls her touched. He calls her his. You teach him how to listen, not to you, to her. And then you send him home not alone, but with a pouch of herbs, a chant for safety, and a promise. When she's ready, we'll find her. That becomes your new role. Not leader, not legend. Messenger. You don't sit in the hollow every night anymore. You travel. Quietly. You listen to whispers pass through fields and firesides. You find the broken, the bending, the ones who blink too often at night because the world's gotten too sharp. And you bring them options. You don't tell them what they are. You show them what's possible. That they can heal. That they can leave. That they're not alone. Some come. Some stay where they are, but stand straighter after. The hollow becomes more than a place. It becomes a network. A quiet constellation of women, men, and children who know the truth and aren't afraid of it. And when one village raises a cry of witchcraft, 2 more raise a hand and say, "Number, that's a healer. Number, that's a mother. Number, that's a child." And slowly, slowly, the firewood stacks shrink. That doesn't mean danger dies. Sometimes it gets smarter. One night, you return to the hollow to find a stranger waiting. He's tall, unarmed, dressed not like clergy, but like a man who's been watching. He introduces himself as Inquisitor Mercier. French, smooth voice, no visible agenda. "I've heard," he says, "of your village." You say nothing. "I'd like to understand it." Still silence. He smiles. "I'm not here to kill witches. I'm here to ask why you exist." You offer him a seat by the fire. You let him speak. He tells you what you already know, that across the continent, fear is changing, not vanishing, just changing shape. That old methods are failing. That whispers travel faster than orders. That means something, he says, but I don't know what. You watch him closely. You don't ask because you want to learn, you say. You ask because you want to control. He doesn't argue. You offer him tea. He drinks it. He sees nothing that night. No rituals, no spells, just a place full of people not afraid to be who they are. And in the morning, he leaves. You never see him again. But 3 weeks later, word arrives that a tribunal was quietly dissolved, that 2 women were released from chains, that a priest was demoted for overzealous persecution. Change. Small, but real. And you begin to understand. This isn't just about the hollow anymore. It's about everywhere. You never thought you'd live long enough to see the world tilt back. But it is. And when you stand under the trees now, you don't feel hunted. You feel home. Because they tried to kill you. And all they did was give you time to build. Autumn comes with its usual quiet pageantry. Red leaves spiraling down like ash, fog crawling low in the fields, and wind that smells faintly of things turning old. You wake before dawn more often now. Not from nightmares. Those have faded. But from a sense of waiting, like the forest is holding its breath. The hollow still hums with life. Children laugh while gathering nuts. Elders dry bundles of mugwort, and the smoke from the main hearth twists upward in a lazy spiral that never breaks. The peace here is earned, but fragile. Because outside, beyond the pines, beyond the boundary lines you walked so many times, the world still burns. Not with fire, with certainty. Villages further south, ones you've never touched, are falling into the old patterns again. Blame the sick, accuse the old, hang charms on doors and pretend it's protection instead of paranoia. And then there's the woman in black. You hear it first from a merchant's son who stumbles into the hollow with a twisted ankle and too much to prove. He says there's another witch, one that doesn't hide. She walks through villages, he whispers, with a bell around her neck and bones in her hair. She offers blessings for coin. One woman refused her. The next morning, her husband drowned in a bucket. The children gasp. The elders frown. You remain silent. Not because you doubt it, because you believe it too easily. Later, in your tent, you turn it over in your mind. This isn't one of yours. No hollow-born witch wears bones as fashion. No one here trades protection like currency. But still, she's out there. You think about going after her. But then you receive something more pressing. A letter. No seal. Just a folded scrap of cloth tucked under a stone at the edge of your path. Written in soot-black ink. The bishop is dying. You blink. It continues. He's called for you, not in malice and fear. Come before the frost or not at all. You sit with it for an hour, then two. You think of his face. Red. Righteous. Slick with sweat as he read your sentence aloud. You think of the way he stood when the flames began. Not proud, not pious, panicked. Now he calls. Not the church, not the crowd. You. The hollow watches as you pack. No one speaks against it. Some offer bundles. Della gives you her foxbone charm. Hilda, a knife. The boy with the visions draws a circle on your palm with ash and whispers. So, you don't forget who you are. The journey is quiet, fog heavy. Your feet know the path, and when you reach the village, something has changed. The air is still. The streets are clean, too clean. No children laugh, no cows wander loose. The tavern is shuttered. The chapel doors hang slightly ajar. You are not welcome, but you are expected. You enter the bishop's house. Stone, cold, too large for one man. A single candle burns in the window, as if it's been waiting to go out. Inside, silence. And then, him. Smaller than you remember. Paler. Laid on a cot beneath a faded tapestry of St. Michael stabbing a serpent. Irony thick in the air. He opens one eye. You came, he croaks. I almost didn't, you say. He nods. Wise. You sit, don't ask permission. There's no one else in the room, not even his men. He doesn't speak at first, just studies your face, not with hatred, with something closer to study, like he's cataloging a species he once swore didn't exist. Finally, I thought I was right. You nod. Most tyrants do. I thought you were the beginning of rot, that your knowledge came from corruption, that your silence was pride. You say nothing. He coughs, dry, ragged. But now, I see the rot was mine, and the pride, the silence. He reaches under his cot, pulls out a small bundle. Inside, your journal, the one you thought lost, the one they called your grimoire. He hands it to you. I kept it, he whispers. I read it. I didn't understand all of it. But enough. Enough. To know you weren't summoning demons, just saving lives. He stares past you now. Do you hate me? You could say yes. It would be easy. It would be justified. But instead you say, no, I outgrew you. That lands harder. He closes his eyes. Breathing slows. I've seen her, he murmurs. The woman in black? A nod. She's not like you. She doesn't want balance, just chaos. Wants fear to bloom again. I tried to warn them. And? They laughed. He opens his eyes once more. I don't want to be remembered as a man who let the world burn. You stand. You already were. And then softer. But maybe not forever. He smiles once. It's thin. Cracked. Tell them I said I'm sorry. I won't. He nods. Good. He dies that night. No trumpets. No cries. Just a breath that stops being a breath. You walk out into the square. The sun has risen behind a wall of mist. And for the first time since the fire, no one follows you. No one speaks. No one dares. Because the bishop is gone. And something else, someone else, is coming. And you? You're ready for her. You return to the hollow under the weight of two truths. The bishop is dead, and the woman in black is not a myth. The forest receives you like an old friend. The moment your feet touch the moss past the boundary line, the wind shifts. Leaves rattle like chimes. A crow caws once, then falls silent. They sense what you bring. News travels fast, even faster in places that don't use ink. Della meets you at the edge of the stone arch, eyes wide. It's true then? You nod. The bishop's gone. And her? You hesitate. She's real, and she's moving. Della's lips press into a tight line. Toward us? Not yet, you say, but soon. Over the next days, the hollow becomes alert. Not afraid, but listening. The usual chatter at the fire dims. The forest feels more alive. Branches creak at odd angles. Dreams get heavier. Because they know what you know. It's not the fire that matters now. It's the one who likes watching things burn. You hear the first report from the traveling monk, the one who stayed after you offered him tea and didn't blink at the salt circle beneath his stool. He carries news from a village 3 days south. One woman, black cloak, bell at her throat. She entered without knocking. They say she blessed the barley field, he says. Next morning, the entire crop blackened overnight. Della raises an eyebrow. Coincidence? Maybe, you say, or maybe not. Another tale arrives? From a woodsman whose wife once stayed in the hollow for healing. He says he saw the woman in the river, not walking on it. Within it, kneeling, waist deep, murmuring to the current. The next day, 3 children fell ill. By the end of the week, 1 didn't wake up. That village has started marking doors with charcoal crosses, hiding livestock indoors, digging ditches. For what they don't know, just digging, as if fear must go somewhere. You sit at the hollow's center and read from your journal, not because you think it holds answers, but because it holds context. And something strange emerges. A pattern. The woman in black appears only in places that once burned witches. The ones who hosted trials. The ones who cheered when someone screamed. She's not random. She's remembering. Hilda says it first. She's a ghost with a grudge. Della shakes her head. No ghost I've ever met needed coin. You say nothing. Because you're beginning to understand. She's not a ghost. She's the other version of you. The one who did burn. The one who never found a hollow. The one who never forgave. And now she walks the world in bone and silk, handing out blessings wrapped in warning. And for some that's comforting. Because if curses can be bought, they can be avoided. But you know better? Her power doesn't come from fire. It comes from story. She lets people believe she's death in human form, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. Fear does her work for her. Her miracles, when they happen, are cruel and precise. A stillborn child revived, but cursed to never speak. A plague banished from one house and relocated to another. A charm that keeps wolves away and draws wasps instead. She's not healing. She's balancing the scales. You send a scout, not a warrior. A girl named Brisa. Young, soft-voiced, curious enough to find danger and wise enough to avoid it. She follows the trail, finds the woman's path, and returns with a pouch of black salt. She dropped it, Brisa says. On purpose, I think. You examine it. It smells of iron, myrrh, ash. You light a pinch. It flares purple. Not hollow work, but not foreign either. Familiar. In the way nightmares are familiar. The next night, you dream of her. Not vividly, just flashes. A woman kneeling at a grave, scraping symbols into bark, cutting her palm with a blade shaped like a question. And then her voice. Why did you get to live? You wake gasping. The wind has changed. The hollow gathers. They want answers. So, you give them the only one that matters. We must meet her, not to fight, not to stop her, to understand her. They protest, they fear. She's dangerous, says Hilda. Yes, you reply, so was I. You take only 2 companions, Della and Brisa. You follow the path north, where 3 villages sleep too soundly. You arrive just before dusk. The sun bleeds behind the trees. You find her at a well, standing alone, dressed in layers of black so deep they reflect no light, bones braided into her hair, eyes like dead coals. She does not run. She does not smile. She says, I was wondering when you'd come. Your hands are empty. Your voice is steady. I know what you are, you say. She tilts her head. Do you? I know you weren't always this, that you were me once, or someone like me. But you didn't get the hollow. You got the fire. She steps forward. Her bell doesn't ring, but the wind shivers. I got nothing, not even the scream. Silence. Then you speak. You're not wrong for being angry. But I am, she interrupts, wrong for using it. She's mocking herself now, or testing you. You take a step closer. Come with us. You don't have to haunt them. You can outlive them. She laughs, dry and bitter. They don't deserve to forget. You nod. Then let's teach them, but not through sickness, not through fear. Through what then? Kindness? Number through memory. Real memory. The kind they can't twist into bedtime monsters. She stares at you. For a long time, then turns. Walks into the dark. Doesn't vanish. Just leaves. But the black salt? She leaves that behind. In a perfect little spiral. A beginning. Or a warning. You're not sure yet. But either way, the hollow will be ready. She doesn't return the next day. Or the one after. The villagers talk about her, of course. They always do. Each version of her story grows taller, darker, more dramatic. They say she floated over the river, that she cursed a man by touching his shadow, that she blessed a baby and turned its hair white, that she never blinks, that she never forgets. And somewhere between all those exaggerations lies the truth. You saw it. She remembers too well. And remembering alone can be dangerous. Back in the hollow, things grow quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when people are trying not to ask questions out loud. They want to know what happened at the well. They want to know what you said to her, what she said to you, what it means. You don't tell them. Not yet. Because you're still trying to understand it yourself. What does it mean when your reflection is walking the world, balancing scales in blood and salt, unafraid to be feared? What does it mean when your survival, your second chance, feels like a privilege someone else never got? You sit by the stream where you first saw your own face again after the fire. You watch a crow drink from the current. When it looks up at you, its eyes aren't judging, just knowing. Yes, they say, she could have been you. And maybe in another breath, you could have been her. Later that week, a child from the outer woods arrives at the hollow gate. She's young, maybe 8, filthy, barefoot, clutching a lopsided doll made of reeds, You kneel. Are you hungry? She nods. Are you hurt? She lifts her sleeve. A bruise, black and blooming. Who sent you? She whispers one word. Her. Everyone in the hollow stills. You bring the girl in. Wash her feet. Feed her. Della braids her hair. Hilda tucks Heather into her pillow. She sleeps for 2 days. When she wakes, she tells you what happened. The woman in black came to her village, walked straight into the square, told the priest to step aside. He didn't. She whispered into his ear. That night, he packed and fled. No fire, no blood. Just fear. And then she came to the girl's house, saw the bruises, saw the man who made them. By morning, the man had no voice. He still walks, still eats, but he never speaks again. Some call it justice. Some call it terror. The girl calls it safety. And you? You see the problem. She's not attacking systems. She's replacing them. One woman, with her own rules, her own scale, her own boundaries. That's not balance. That's another kind of rule book. One day she'll make a mistake, or someone will accuse her. And when they do, they'll come for all of you again. Because people don't separate their fears. They just rename them. So you do something no one expects. You write to her. Not with a pen, not on parchment. You burn juniper, mix ash and oil, carve a message into bark, and whisper into a hollow stone. Let's meet again, but this time, not in shadow. You place the stone at the edge of the hollow, where the wind touches both worlds. 3 nights later, she answers, not with words, with a gift. A pouch of her black salt, tied in red thread, and beneath it, a note in charcoal. Try your way just once, then we'll see. You hold it like you're holding a live thing. She's not mocking you. She's listening. The next day, word reaches you of another village preparing to burn someone. An older woman, widow, lives alone, knows how to stop fevers with goat's milk and angelica. Once helped a man walk again after a fall. Now someone's cow died, and she's the easiest answer. Same script, different stage. You go. Not alone, not in darkness, in daylight. Cloaked in gray, not black. With Della beside you, and Brisa, and the little girl. Her name is Lena now, holding your hand. You arrive in the village and walk directly to the square. They freeze, because they know who you are, or think they do. You speak calmly. You ask them what they know, not what they heard, what they know. The crowd murmurs. They speak of signs, of omens, of a feeling. You ask if anyone saw the woman curse the cow. No one has. You ask if anyone tried to treat the cow. No one did. You kneel beside the accused, a woman with silver hair and eyes like clear water. You ask her what she did last week. I prayed, she says. I gathered leaves. I made tea for a boy with blisters. You nod. Then you turn to the crowd and say, if you burn her, you're not protecting yourselves. You're orphaning yourselves. She's the last person in this village who remembers the birthing song, the one that saved your grandfather's life, the one that kept your harvest from turning sour 3 summers ago. They blink. They hesitate. And just like that, the spell breaks. Not with magic, with memory. They lower the torches. They release the ropes. They apologize. Not all, not loudly, but enough. And in that moment, you feel it. Your way worked. At least this time. That night, back in the hollow, you burn a strand of your own hair in the fire. The smoke swirls, and when it clears, another pouch of black salt sits on the stone. But this one's different. No thread. Just a feather tied to the knot. No note. Just understanding. She's still out there, still walking, still balancing. But now, maybe, you walk a parallel path. Not allies, not enemies, just two halves of a world trying to remember itself, one fire at a time. Snow begins to fall earlier this year. It comes not with ceremony, but with the silence of something ancient slipping back into place, like the forest has pulled up its blankets and is daring the world to disturb its sleep. The hollow takes the hint. You prepare for winter the way your people always have. Slowly, intentionally, with more conversation than noise. Preserving root vegetables, stringing hawthorn above every doorway. Inscribing protection sigils in the soot of every hearth. You find yourself waking earlier again, but now not from dread, from instinct. Something is coming. Not danger. Not quite. Something final. You sit by the fire one night and realize something quietly terrifying. This life, this rhythm, this hollow has become normal. Not a refuge, not a rebellion, just life. You're no longer the woman who escaped death. You're the woman who organizes the dry mint. And still, the dreams return. Not of fire, not of crows. Of her, the woman in black. This time, you see her standing on a frozen lake. The ice is smooth, moonlit, but cracking beneath her boots. She doesn't move, doesn't blink, just waits. Hands open, bell silent. And behind her, countless others. Women, men, children, shadow forms, their faces hidden, all waiting. You wake breathless, because you finally understand. She isn't the only one. She never was. She's just the loudest. The first ripple in a tide that's been building for generations. They're all out there, survivors, scattered, silenced, watching, waiting, and soon they'll need somewhere to go. You bring it up to Della first. We need to expand, you say. She looks up from her waxwork, a ritual candle with 2 wicks, one for body, one for memory. Expand how? Not more tents, not more firewood, more hollows. She stills. You explain. You've seen the signs, letters tucked in tree bark, offerings left at crossroads, scorched circles in places where no one claims a fire. People are trying to call for something. They just don't know what. You do. You don't need to build more villages. You need to teach others to build them. The way you were taught? Or weren't? You want to send us out, Della says. You nod. Not all. Not at once, but yes, some. And what happens if they don't want to listen? You pause. Then we plant the seed anyway. Maybe it won't take, but maybe it will. She's quiet for a long time. Then finally she says, then let's start with 3. You begin selecting names. Brisa, of course. She's light on her feet, quick with a smile and never forgets a face. Lena, now 10, sharp-eyed, and already more clever than most adults. She's too young to go alone, but she's ready to travel with an older mentor. And Hilda volunteers, which surprises no one, except Hilda. I'm old, she protests. You're wise, you correct, and tired of cooking for 20. She glares. That's true. Preparations begin. Maps drawn not with roads, but with rivers and rumors. Pouches packed with not just herbs, but history. Rituals and symbols stitched into cloth, ready to be sewn into new walls and new minds. Before they leave, you gather everyone in the fire ring. Not for a ceremony, for a promise. You speak aloud what was never spoken to you. You're not going out to spread magic, or fear, or law. You're going to tell people what they were never allowed to hear. That strangeness is not sickness. That silence is not safety. That being feared is not the same as being free. And if they come for us, Brisa asks, you reach into your cloak and toss a pinch of the black salt into the flames. They already came, we're still here. They leave at dawn, and the hollow changes, not in shape, in purpose. Now it is not just a sanctuary, it's a source, a hearth, not a cage. One evening, a traveler arrives. She doesn't speak much, carries a bag of lavender and a crow feather braided into her hair. She says only this: "I was told this is where the remembering begins." You give her a bed. You don't ask who told her. But in the morning, beside her sleeping mat, is a small stone, charred, with a spiral carved into it. You pick it up, you smile, and for the first time in a long time, you whisper her name. Not in warning, in thanks. Because whatever she is, curse, ghost, fury made flesh, she passed the message along. You're no longer just fighting the old world. You're teaching a new one how to begin. Snow deepens, and with it, the quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, but sacred. Even the crows tread softer now, their claws barely whispering against frozen bark. The hollow adjusts to its new rhythm. Fewer mouths to feed, more space by the hearth. At night, you watch the flames flicker against the stone walls and listen to the breathing of those who stayed behind. The ones not ready to leave yet. The ones who still carry their fear like a second skin. But things are changing. One morning, before the sun has properly risen, a horn sounds at the southern ridge. One short blast. Not alarm, not danger. Arrival. Della is the first to reach the gate. She carries her staff, out of habit more than threat. You follow behind, breath puffing out in little clouds. Brisa stands just beyond the boundary, covered in frost, cheeks red with wind, but grinning like someone who's seen something impossible, and believed it anyway. Behind her, 3 others, 2 women and a boy no older than 12. All 3 marked by travel, mud-caked boots, salt lines around their eyes from crying. You take their hands. You say the words now etched into hollow tradition. You are safe. You are seen. You will never burn here. Brisa's voice is hoarse from the road, but she insists on reporting that night by the fire. We didn't build a new hollow, she says. Not yet, but we planted it. The ground was ready. She tells you about a valley town. Quiet, gray, full of people who keep their heads low even when it rains. One midwife with broken fingers. One boy who hears insects speak. One baker who makes charms out of dough and pretends they're ornaments. They're waiting, watching. Brisa gave them the rituals. She taught them to boil rosemary with milk when the night feels haunted. She taught them to press lavender into their boots before funerals. She showed them how to listen for truth in a scream. They're scared, she says, but they remember. And that's enough. Over the next weeks, more travelers come. Not in floods, in trickles, like the first thaw. Some arrive alone, some in pairs, some carrying others. One woman carries a bird with a broken wing and insists it's her cousin. You don't ask. You give it a perch and a name. Each new arrival brings not just a story, but a reminder that you were never alone. You just hadn't been found yet. One night, as snow begins to fall again, you sit beside the fire and thumb through your journal. The original one, burnt at the edges, bound in old cloth, pages filled with pressed herbs, chicken scratches, half-spelled curses, and full-hearted cures. And something hits you. There are too many pages. You've written so much, seen so much, built so much. This hollow, this life, was once a last breath. Now it's a library. You start to copy the pages. Not word for word. Not like scripture. Like seeds. You write the core truths. That power is not evil. That silence is not safety. That survival is not shameful. That remembering is holy. You bind the copies in waxed linen. You tuck them into the packs of those departing. You leave one at the edge of the wood where the spiral stone still rests. You wonder if she will take it or burn it, but the next morning, it's gone. And in its place, a red thread. Knotted once, clean, final. A pact, perhaps, or a warning. You accept either, because you no longer wait for the world to approve of you. You outlasted the world that condemned you. You outgrew the fire they lit for you. You are no longer the girl at the stake. You are the one who tells the truth about it. One evening, a child tugs your sleeve. Annabelle, grown taller now, sharper, but still filled with that too quiet fire. Will you teach me the boundary? You pause. Which part? She smiles. The one where they forget how to lie. You nod and walk her into the woods, to the edge of the hollow, to the place where the air feels like it's listening. There you teach her the stones, the patterns, the chant not of words, but of intention. To remember, to protect, to forgive, but not erase. She repeats after you. She does not falter. And when she finishes, she says, "Will it keep us safe?" You answer the way you always do. It won't stop the world from being cruel, but it'll stop us from believing we deserve it. She doesn't speak for a while. Then she nods. And for the first time, she presses the last stone into place. You let her, because this is her hollow now too. You're not the center anymore. You're the soil, and they're growing just fine. Winter deepens, but you no longer dread the stillness. It is not silence, it is containment. Not emptiness, but pause. The hollow breathes with the snow now. It hibernates with intent. The trails vanish beneath white. The trees hold their frost like memories. The firewood is stacked, the herbs hung high, and the dreams? Well, the dreams keep coming. But not only yours. Others have begun to speak of them too. Brisa sees the spiral in her sleep. Della dreams of wolves who speak in her mother's voice. Annabelle wakes gasping with visions of women walking backward into lakes, singing the names of those history tried to forget. You recognize it. Not just memory now. Legacy. It's starting to take shape. And it's not just the hollow anymore. One morning, the monk returns. You haven't seen him in months. His robe is threadbare. His eyes are clearer. He carries news. 3 villages south of the old trading route have stopped burning their accused. Stopped accusing them at all. One built a shrine to the Ash Walker. That's you, apparently. Another paints spirals on its shutters. A third has a circle of women who now deliver every child born in a 10-mile radius. They wear no crosses, only black strings around their wrists. He sits beside the fire and says, almost too casually, "Your name has become useful." You blink. That's not always good. No, he says, but it is always louder than fear. That same night, Hilda receives a bird at her window. A sleek black crow with a scrap of ribbon tied to its foot. A note. 2 words. One remains. It's her. The woman in black. The one you met at the well. The one who sees justice as a tightrope and balance as a blade. You haven't spoken since autumn, but you felt her. In the stories you hear from travelers, in the odd gifts left at the edge of your boundary, in the silence between dreams. And now she's calling. Not for war. For closure? You don't tell the hollow. Not right away. Not because you're hiding, but because this one is yours alone. You prepare simply. A pouch, a charm, a sprig of pine for steadiness. You walk alone. No escort, no fire, no cloak of ash. Only your name. She waits at the frozen lake. Just like the dream. Bell still. Bones still woven in her hair. But her eyes are different this time. Not burning, tired. You're late, she says. You kneel beside her. Not in deference, in grounding. The ice groans beneath you both. You stay still. You said one remains. She nods. A priest, the one who lit the first fire under me. I found him. You say nothing. He's old now, blind, lives with a niece who thinks he's harmless. She laughs once, cold as flint. But he remembers, and I remember. And I thought, you should decide. You look at her. Why me? Because I hate him, but you might still have mercy left. And there it is, the final test. You could say yes, you could say no, but you choose something else. I don't decide what happens to men who forget what they've done. I decide what I carry. She tilts her head. And what do you carry now? You reach into your pouch. You pull out a stone, one of hers. From the well, charred, spiral carved. You place it on the ice between you. I carry you, you say. She blinks. I remember you. I speak for you, so you don't have to burn anyone else to be real. She doesn't cry, but she exhales like someone who forgot breath was an option. Then she says, I never wanted to be feared? I know, you whisper. She stands. The bell around her neck falls off, hits the ice, doesn't break. She leaves it. She walks away without turning back. You sit there long after she's gone. Then pick up the bell. Not to wear, to bury. You return to the hollow just before sunrise. The others are waiting. They don't ask what happened. They don't need to. They see your hands, empty, your shoulders, lighter. They see the bell now hanging quietly over the fire. And they understand that the age of burning is ending. That memory has outlived the flames. That the story is changing. Because you let it. Because she let it. Because now no one walks alone. Not anymore. The first green appears sooner than expected. Not in the canopy or even the ground, but in the cracks between stones near the oldest fire ring. A curl of moss. Almost nothing. But you notice? Because that's your job now. To notice what grows where things used to burn. Spring doesn't arrive like a parade. It arrives like a secret. A little warmer breath in the wind. A shift in the rhythm of birdsong. Snow that melts just a little faster on the eastern slope. The hollow stirs. And then it moves. Della calls a meeting. Not formally. Just with a pot of soup and the sort of tone that makes people gather. We need to go see, she says. You raise an eyebrow. See what? Where the others planted. It's been months since the first offshoots left, since Brisa led her small group, since Hilda walked into the wind like it owed her rent, since Lena asked, not if she could start her own hollow, but when. No one's heard from them since winter closed the roads. Now the roads are opening, and the hollow is full of messengers without messages. So you agree. You don't take many. Just Della, Annabelle, and two others who've grown into quiet power. One carries a flask of moonwater. The other wears a belt of dried roses like armor. You set out. And for the first time in years, you walk toward the world instead of away from it. The path south is different now. Villagers don't look away when they see you. Some nod. Some offer bread. One woman, old and squinting, clutches your wrist and says, My grandson walks again. Your hollow taught us how to pull fever through the souls. You don't correct her. You smile. Because it's not just yours anymore. You reach the valley town after 3 days. And stop short. Because it's there. A hollow. Not yours. Not a copy. A sibling. It has a ring of stones. Not your pattern. Theirs. It has a central fire. Not wood-fed, but coal-capped, with herbs laid like prayers around the rim. It smells like pine and rain and onion skin. Children run barefoot. Women mix tinctures in jars shaped like apples. A man carves names into a wall of clay, not of the living, of the forgiven. And Brisa greets you with mud on her sleeves and a grin that says, "I told you it would work." Hilda is there too. Her back's a little more bent, but her spirit's even sharper. Lena walks out from the forest with a string of berries and a wolf pup at her side. And you feel it. It worked. The rituals changed. The rules softened. The purpose stayed. Healing. Remembering. Holding space where the world once tried to crush the strange. Brisa gives you a tour. This, she says, pointing to a painted post, is the listening tree. People come here when they don't want advice, just ears. You nod. We had one of those. We just didn't paint it. She laughs. This. She points to a circle of mirrors hung from twine. This scares off spirits that mean harm. Does it work? Only when people believe it does. You walk into the healing tent. Not yours, not Della's, not based on anything you ever built. And yet, something familiar hums in the air. Not your song, but harmony. And then Brisa says, "We want to send more out." You pause. More? She nods. We have 6 ready. Not just here. We've been in touch with the northern river town and the women by the salt flats. They're building. You feel your chest tighten. Not from fear, from growth. The hollow was never meant to stay in one place. You knew that. But now it's happening. The spiral has become a map, not a warning. A wayfinder. That night, under stars that don't blink, you sit beside the fire and think of her. The woman in black. The first to fracture the silence. The one who bled truth before it was safe. You wonder where she is now. If she walks alone, or if she too has begun something new. Something gentler. In the morning before you leave, Brisa hands you a bundle. Letters, she says, from others. People who heard. People who want to learn. You take them. Each one sealed not in wax, but with pressed petals. You return to the hollow with full arms. You spread the letters out on your table. You begin to read. And somewhere, deep in the folds of the woods, another hollow opens. Not with fire, with forgiveness. The days stretch longer now, the sun taking its time before dipping behind the hills. The wind is warm, but still touched by memory, as if it's not sure whether to let go of winter just yet. The hollow grows quietly. Not with noise, not with fanfare, with patterns. A new child is born beneath the ash tree. They wrap her in thistlecloth and place a spiral stone in her crib. Not as a ward, but a welcome. Her name is Mira. Her eyes are pale blue, but she never cries. When she sleeps, she hums. Annabelle teaches her how to hum back. You wake every morning now to the sound of weaving. Not looms, not thread, but words. Stories passed from mouth to mouth, not just of fire anymore, but of healing, of defiance, of survival. They speak of you, yes? But also of Brisa, who calmed a fevered town with sage and song. Of Lena, who mapped her entire hollow in scented smoke. Of Della, who taught an entire village to fear less and listen more. Of the woman in black, who hasn't been seen in months, but whose spiral still appears carved into old wood, tucked under hearthstones, pressed into clay walls with soft, respectful fingers. The hollow has outgrown its name. Now it's not a place. It's a pulse. You sit one afternoon with the monk again. The same one, though his beard is grayer and his robes are patched with care. He sips his tea and says, "Do you remember the day they tried to kill you?" You nod. "I always will." He nods too. But do you remember the day you stopped being afraid of it?" That takes longer. But yes, you do. It wasn't when you escaped. Not when you reached the hollow. Not even when the bishop begged for mercy. It was the day you taught. The day you handed your fear to someone else and said, "This is what I made with it." Not revenge. Ritual. Not bitterness. Remembrance. The monk smiles and sets his cup down. You've changed the world? You shake your head. I just made sure it didn't forget us. He leaves behind a gift, a scroll of blank parchment. Not for writing down rules. 4 stories. 4 truths. For the next ones. Because they're already coming. 3 girls arrive from the east. Sisters. Hands stained with soot and dye. They say their town outlawed prayer, so they wrote their own. One involving poppies, breath, and string. You show them the fire circle and say, "Make it yours." A man comes from the north, tall, sunburnt, wearing shoes made from stitched linen. Says he dreamed of the hollow 3 times, then walked until the ground matched his vision. You show him where the mushrooms grow thickest. A boy, maybe 10, arrives with a necklace made of teeth. He does not speak, but he leaves drawings, spirals, wolves, hands held out instead of raised. He sleeps best near the heather bush. You build his shelter there. You keep your own circle of salt, tucked under the roots of the old ash tree, not out of fear, out of gratitude, for the parts of you that needed the darkness once, and now no longer do. One night, the fire burns low, and you're alone by its side. The coals glow orange. The air is thick with wood smoke and memory. You whisper, "I forgive you." And you don't know if you mean yourself, or the ones who lit the match, or the ones who watched and did nothing. But the words feel lighter when they leave. The wind takes them without protest. And in the smoke, just for a breath, you see her. The woman in black. Only now the bones are gone. The bell is buried. She stands not in mourning, but in witness. And then she's gone, but not lost. Because in the hollow in the world beyond it, she walks now in every woman who dared to remember her name. And when the next child is born, you place the spiral stone not at her feet, but in her hand. Because the story is hers now. You just kept it safe long enough to be told. The fire has dimmed now. The last embers crackle like whispers from an older world, soft and fading. The hollow sleeps. You can feel it, not just the people, but the land itself exhaling. The soil no longer clenched with fear, the trees no longer holding their breath. The wind moves slow and circular, brushing past tent walls like an old friend who doesn't need to knock anymore. You walk slowly tonight. Your steps don't echo like they used to, not because the path is softer, but because you are. The sharpness that once kept you alive has dulled, smoothed into something gentler, more solid. Not a blade, a root. Something that holds quietly beneath the surface. At the edge of the hollow, where the warding stones sit half buried in moss, you pause. Look up. No clouds, no moon. Just stars, distant, watchful, eternal. You remember a time when you thought they might be gods, angry ones, watching every misstep. But they were never angry. They were just there, like you, like her, still here, still watching, still waiting to be remembered. A soft breeze brushes past your shoulder. You close your eyes. There's no more running, no more trial, no more fire licking your heels while the crowd pretends not to hear you scream. Only footsteps in pine needles, only names spoken with care, only the sound of night turning inward like a hand folding closed around a flame that no longer burns, but glows. Somewhere in some hollow you will never see, a child stirs in sleep, dreaming of women with bells and black ribbons, not as monsters, but as mothers of memory. A life once unthinkable, now normal. You return to your bed, which is little more than a blanket, a corner, and a pouch of herbs you've carried for too many winters. It smells like lavender and smoke. You smile. Because now when you dream of the fire, it's warm and it doesn't hurt. It never did. Not really. It only reminded you who you were meant to become. And now you've become it. Fully. Finally. Completely. The last thing you hear before sleep takes you is a voice. Your own. Whispering not a spell, not a curse, but a promise.